Have you ever felt like someone completely changed after you got close to them? In the beginning, everything felt natural, effortless, and genuine. They were attentive, consistent, and emotionally available. Conversations flowed easily, and there was a sense of connection that made you feel seen and understood. But then, slowly, or all at once, something shifted, and you couldn't quite figure out why. At first, you might question yourself. You wonder if you did something wrong, or somehow caused the change. You replay moments in your head, looking for clues, trying to make sense of the difference between who they were before and who they are now. But often, the answer has less to do with you and more to do with human behavior, emotional patterns, and the reality of how people relate to closeness. One common reason people change is the early stage of any relationship. It is often driven by effort and impression. When someone is getting to know you, they are naturally more focused, more expressive, and sometimes even a slightly idealized version of themselves. They want to be liked, understood, and accepted, so they show up with intention. But once a certain level of comfort is reached, that effort can fade. This doesn't always mean the person was being fake. It often means they were operating at a level of energy and attention that isn't sustainable long-term. When the relationship settles, they return to their natural baseline. The problem is that baseline may feel very different from what you initially experienced, creating the impression they've changed, when in reality, you're just seeing a more unfiltered version of them. Another reason this shift happens is emotional availability. Some people are comfortable with connection up to a certain point, but when things start to feel deeper or more serious, they pull back. Closeness can trigger vulnerability, and vulnerability can be uncomfortable, especially for someone who isn't used to it. So instead of leaning in, they create distance. This distance can show up in different ways. They may communicate less, become less expressive, or avoid meaningful conversations. It's not always intentional or calculated. In many cases, it's a defense mechanism. Pulling away feels safer than confronting emotions they don't fully understand or know how to handle. There's also the role of expectations. In the beginning, everything is new, and there's a natural excitement that comes with discovering someone. But as the relationship progresses, expectations start to form. You begin to expect consistency, effort, and emotional presence. And when those expectations aren't met, the change feels more noticeable. On the other side, the other person may feel those expectations as pressure. Even if you haven't explicitly expressed them, they can sense the shift. And instead of rising to meet those expectations, they may retreat, especially if they're unsure of their ability or willingness to maintain that level of connection. Sometimes, people change because they've achieved what they were initially seeking. This can be emotional support, validation, attention, or even just the comfort of not feeling alone. Once they feel secure in having that, their behavior may become more relaxed or, in some cases, less invested. The effort they once put in is no longer driven by the same motivation. This can be difficult to accept because it makes the early stage of the relationship feel misleading, but it highlights an important truth. Not everyone enters a relationship with the same intentions or long-term mindset. What feels meaningful and lasting to you might feel temporary or situational to someone else. Another factor is familiarity. As people get comfortable, they often drop the habits they maintained in the beginning. The frequent messages, the thoughtful gestures, the consistent attention. These things require effort. And when someone feels like they no longer need to win you over, they may stop doing the very things that created the connection in the first place. Familiarity itself isn't a bad thing. In healthy relationships, it leads to stability, trust, and authenticity. But when familiarity leads to neglect or taken for granted behavior, it creates distance instead of strengthening the bond. There's also the possibility that getting close revealed incompatibilities that weren't obvious before. In the early stages, people tend to focus on similarities and shared interests. But as you spend more time together, differences become more apparent. Values, communication styles, emotional needs, these things start to surface. When someone realizes that the connection isn't as aligned as they initially thought, they may not always communicate it directly. Instead, their behavior changes. They become less engaged, less responsive, or less present. It's not always because they don't care, but because they're unsure how to address the disconnect. Fear of commitment can also play a significant role. For some people, closeness is enjoyable until it starts to feel permanent or serious. When that realization sets in, it can trigger hesitation or withdrawal. They may start to question the relationship, not because something is wrong, but because the idea of commitment feels overwhelming. This kind of shift can be confusing because it often comes after a period of strong connection. One moment, everything feels secure, and the next, it feels uncertain. But that uncertainty isn't always about you. It's often about their internal struggle with what closeness represents. In some cases, people change because they were never fully authentic to begin with. The person you connected with early on may have been shaped by what they thought you wanted to see. And while that version of them felt real at the time, it wasn't sustainable. Eventually, maintaining that image becomes exhausting, and their true behavior starts to emerge. This doesn't mean every change is deceptive, but it does highlight the importance of consistency. Over time, anyone can show up in a certain way for a short period. What matters is who they are when the effort becomes routine and the novelty wears off. It's also worth considering that life circumstances can influence behavior. Stress, work pressure, personal challenges, or emotional struggles can all impact how someone shows up in a relationship. Sometimes, the change you're noticing isn't about the relationship itself, but about something else they're dealing with internally. The difficulty is that not everyone communicates these things openly. Instead of explaining what's going on, they withdraw or behave differently, leaving you to interpret the change without context. And that lack of clarity can make the shift feel more personal than it actually is. No matter the reason, the impact of this kind of change is real. It can leave you feeling confused, hurt, and questioning your own judgment. You might find yourself trying to fix things to bring the relationship back to how it was in the beginning. But chasing the past often leads to more frustration, because the dynamic has already shifted. What matters most is how you respond to that shift. Instead of focusing only on why they changed, it's important to look at what the change means for you. Are your needs still being met? Do you feel valued and respected? Is the relationship still aligned with what you want? You don't need to have all the answers immediately, but you do need to be honest with yourself about what you're experiencing. Ignoring the change won't make it go away. Overanalyzing it won't necessarily fix it either. Sometimes clarity comes from observing patterns rather than trying to decode every detail. Healthy relationships are built on consistency, communication, and mutual effort. Change is natural, but it shouldn't come at the cost of respect or emotional stability. When someone gets close to you, the goal isn't to become less of who they were, but to become more real, more open, and more aligned. If that's not happening, it's worth asking whether the connection is truly as strong as it once felt, or if it was simply at its strongest before reality set in. And while that realization can be difficult, it also gives you the opportunity to choose what kind of relationships you want moving forward. Because at the end of the day, the right people won't just be consistent in the beginning. They'll be consistent when it matters most. After the excitement fades, after the comfort sets in, and after you've truly gotten to know each other, and if someone does change in a way that leaves you questioning your place in their life, you don't have to chase clarity forever. Sometimes the change itself is the answer.